Good morning. I am coming here from after my trail run, and I'm going to make a video for young women. What I think is important for young women to know about men, sex, and relationships. You can take it or leave it. This is just my input. Just as a little background, I do have my education. I have a master's degree. I was married 25 years. I have 3 children, and I was mostly a stay-at-home mom, although I did work, and I have been divorced almost 10 years. I make my money as a sex worker. I have a porn page, and I have an escort business. And I'm also kind of dabbling into life coaching because I'm very into personal development, and I read a lot about um, um, the economy, male-female relationships, and the changing trends. I've also been reading a lot of books lately about evolutionary psychology. I'm taking couples therapy courses from Terry Real, and I have done some coaching with people, especially in the area of their emotions and their thought processes. Hope that wasn't too much of an intro. Um, so, a little bit more about me. I wrote a book called The Fuck List and What I Did for Sex. And I'm into physical fitness. This morning I just went for a trail run. Here I am. I do Pilates 3 times a week and personal training twice a week. I do transcendental meditation. And I'm generally happy with my life, although I do wish could find a man for a relationship, but I have not found one. And good men are harder and harder to find, and this video is going to be about why and how you can prepare. All right, so what is happening is that the world is really changing, and feminism has been a good thing in this regard. Women have equal rights to men, and actually what's happening is for women in the millennial age group in their 20s, they're actually more educated and out earning men. So these women in their 20s get out of college and they look around and they go, where are all the men? And there are fewer of them that you will want to date because women generally want a man who's more educated and makes more money. And I'll talk about why in a moment. That doesn't mean you're a gold digger. That's how we are designed by evolution through millions of years. And then we find fewer men. And women think, what's wrong with me? Where are all the men? There's nothing wrong with you. It's a changing trend worldwide in all industrialized societies. There are many books written on it. There are many articles written on it. I'll let you do your own research, but it is a definite trend. Feminism has also emboldened women to say, I don't need to be like a woman. There's a disparaging and political correctness around we are all the same. There is no difference between men and women. Women can do what men can do. They can be in the military. They can be police officers. They can go to work, have a baby, and be back at work the next day. We are just like men. We work like men. We fuck like men. The problem is, you can do all that, but the problem is that women have become more and more dissatisfied in their personal lives as these trends are happening. And men have kind of lost their way. Like, they're afraid to even approach us anymore and ask us out. So they're just online dating or just not doing much at all. And the good men, the men that women really want, get snatched up pretty quick because they have so many options. For every 4 women who are college educated, I would say there are 3 men. Then what else has happened is that some of these men, the good men, typically stay married. Women will not divorce good guys. The men who are left are usually most divorces are initiated by women. They initiate them in their 50s, and it's usually because the man is emotionally walled off or somehow not attentive to the relationship anymore. And then these men are the ones that are left out in the dating pool after 40 and 50. A lot of them have not done any work on themselves, so they're still the same men that the wives didn't want, but they'll tell you the wife was psycho. That's what they'll say. Or they're very bitter because they have to now give half of their income to the ex-wife and the kids, and they're a little broke and a little bit bitter. And they'll usually go for much younger women who don't expect as much of them. So for women in my age group of 60, the pickings are pretty low. I'm at this point faced with having to date somebody. Men usually want someone younger, so I would have to date someone in his 60s and 70s. And have you seen how guys that age look? I mean, you guys like older men when you're 20, but will you like them when you're 60? Also, what's happening, let's get back to your age group. Women will be like, yeah, I want to pursue my career, I want to work. And by the time women get to be around 30 years old, now they want to get married and have children. And more women are now having children in their 40s than ever before. However, at that age, it's even harder to find a mate. It's harder to find a mate, ladies, in your 30s. I'll tell you why. Because the men who are 35 have a lot of freaking options. They have a lot of options. Because remember, there are fewer men that are going to be men that you want. The men that you want have a lot of options. And they probably will go for someone a little bit younger. And most men want a woman that is kind, pretty, intelligent and kind usually, and a lot of the qualities that you need in the workplace, like to be, a go-getter and to be forceful and to have willpower and discipline, to be aggressive and to assert yourself. These are wonderful qualities. Yet they're masculine qualities, and if a woman has gone through her life just nurturing those masculine qualities and she hasn't nurtured her feminine qualities because they're shamed, it's feminism, it's weak, but the qualities of softness, nurturing, allowing, sweetness, cooperation are not nurtured in that rat race. And unless a woman takes care to nurture those, she's not going to be as appealing to men, because men don't like when women are just very aggressive. So those are just some things to consider. I really, really think, like, I got married in my late 20s in 1988. Back then, that was very old for getting married. Most people I knew were getting married in their early 20s. And I ended up with a pretty good catch, I will say. I did divorce him because he was emotionally walled off. However, we had 25 years of a decent monogamous marriage, and we have 3 wonderful children. And I'm glad I didn't have to be a single mom, and I'm glad I got to nurse all my babies, and I took my breast pump with me to work. I went back to work part-time after my daughter was born, and then a few months later I was laid off, and I just stayed home with the kids. Let me pause for a sec. So the suggestion I'm making is to consider getting married younger than women are usually getting married. I think it's better for women to find a partner younger, in their 20s. I met my ex-husband in college, and that is where a lot of people meet. And I've seen people like find that person in college and not get together with them. So I'm just throwing it out there to consider getting married while you're in college, and then building your career while you're married, instead of waiting until you've got your career set and then getting married. Now, another thing I will say is that it is the nature of a woman, and I'll get into the evolutionary psychology later. When we have babies, we become mama bears, okay? We are designed by evolution to instantly become protective of our babies. And the moms who go back to work and drop their child off in an infant carrier at a daycare, I don't know how they can do it. I can't see that they want to do that, and they're forced to do it because they didn't plan ahead. And I want you to just consider that you may not want children now, but you may want them later. And if you do, some of these decisions are going to be really hard to undo, and they lead a lot of unhappiness in women. So, for example, one thing I did was I knew that I wanted to be home with my kids. And so, my ex husband and I, when we bought our house, we bought a house that we could pay the mortgage on his income. He and I were both making the same amount of money, and we had a very cheap house, a very little cheap house, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And we had really old cars, and we were saving our money, and we were paying the mortgage on his income. So when I stopped working, it wasn't really a big deal. Okay? But if you get used to a lifestyle where you need both your incomes and then you have a baby, you are kind of forced to take your baby to childcare, and I think that's very traumatic for the mother, and it's not. And that's, feminism. The feminists are going to be mad at my video. How dare you say that women are different from men? We are, and I think that's a beauty to celebrate. Now, I will say that some moms love being full-time moms. That wasn't me. I get annoyed when I'm around little kids all the time. I need a lot of free time, and so when my kids were little, I went back to school to get my master's degree, and that way I was out of the house for classes, and I would study while they were sleeping or at preschool, and I would also have different part-time jobs. So when my kids were little, there was a thing called sequencing, where professional women would stop working, and then when the kids were older, they would go back to work. I don't hear that term used anymore. And at that time, I was looking for professional part-time jobs. I will say that I was surprised and disappointed that there weren't any. So I started doing different kinds of jobs. Nothing much has changed. I have a daughter who's 30, and she is also looking for a professional part-time job, and there aren't any. They want her to work full-time, or they want her to work part-time, and there are no benefits. So the corporate America has not kept up with family life, and in fact, because of outsourcing, more people in the workforce, women working, and the loss of labor unions, and the rising cost of living and inflation, all these factors have made it more of a challenge for a woman to stay home with her children or to even work part-time. It's just become more and more challenging. However, there are still people who have that option, especially if you marry a man who has enough resources to provide for the family. And fewer men do, and that's a sad thing for men because they want to provide. Okay, now let's get into the evolutionary psychology. I highly recommend that everyone reads the book Mate, M-A-T-E, by Tucker Max and Jeffrey Miller. It's a book that came out 7 years ago, but I just finished reading it, and there are many evolutionary psychologists who've written books that explain our attraction. Men are attracted to women. Men are sexually attracted to almost all women. So you have to know, ladies, that guys are going to check you out because they are designed through millions of years of evolution. We were designed to procreate and continue reproducing the species in the most optimal way. And for that, the man is kind of the sexual initiator. And they see women, a typical guy will go through the day and get a hard-on like every few minutes, from the way it's explained to me. But they will key in on our beauty, and so they're initially attracted just to us physically, to our hotness. So I want you to know this about men. They're not being mean or bad. Now, they do need to. They can't act like some entitled imbecile. They can't act like some entitled, immature, premature ejaculator and just come on to you and be rude. That is not appropriate. However, the way we dress, move, and talk does entice them sexually. I mean, you can just be walking down the street and they'll be enticed. However, if you're wearing a little mini skirt and high heels, don't be surprised if they see you as a fuck object, because you're signaling at that point, signaling sexual availability. So the more provocatively you dress, the more the man's uh, lust towards your physicality will come out. And that's why I'm a big believer in dressing modestly in public. Like, you can wear fitted clothing, but the moment there's cleavage or very short skirts, you're signaling, I want to be fucked. So if that's what you want, dress that way, but don't get mad at men when they see you that way. It doesn't give them the right to treat you that way. Okay, I want to be clear. However, it's going to signal that that's what you're all about. So don't get mad at men, okay? Now, what about our part? Because ladies get mad at men. They're like, why are you, I can wear what I want. Why are you, seeing me as a fuck object? How dare you? Well, you're signaling that, okay? So that's how they'll see you. So if you're looking for a relationship, dress a little more modestly. You can wear tight things, but just keep it covered up. Just like, think Kate Middleton, but your own sense of style. Now, men often get mad at women and they think that we're gold diggers, but we're not. We were designed by evolution to want men who display signs of physical, mental, and emotional health. So we like men who are strong and fit and happy. We like that they have shown, a man who starts his own business has shown he has willpower, discipline, emotional regulation. If he can handle his employees, he's given social proof. Other people like him. He gets along with other people. He's shown signs of intelligence, mental health. And all these indicators, we as women can scan a guy in 2 seconds and we know if we like him or not. And we want a man who's like a strong man, a tender defender who provides and protects. Now, there are women who will go for abusive men or wounded men or alcoholic men, and that comes from like their trauma. But I'm talking about the typical healthy woman, which you will look for. And that's a good thing because we are physically weaker. We have more to lose through a sexual encounter, a short-term mating situation. A man can just fuck a bunch of women and there's no consequence. If we get pregnant, we know biologically, and we were evolved to kind of feel that we know a lot is on the line if we get pregnant, and this guy doesn't stick around. I know we have birth control now, but we evolved over millions of years, and birth control is very new. So we instinctively look for men who we think would make good boyfriends, even for short-term mating. Like, even me, when I was hooking up, I always looked for guys who had that kind of like good dad vibe, good looking, good dad vibe. That's what we like. And men mistake that as us being gold diggers, but we're not. And there's a lot of evolutionary psychology stuff around this. Like, we have a more sensitive scent. If you give women a bunch of t-shirts worn by men and they don't see the men, and you ask the women which scent they like the most, like the men wear them overnight, I think for 3 days, the most attractive scent for women was the one that happened to be correlated with men who had more symmetrical faces, a sign of better health. The man's voice, a deeper voice. We cue in, the way he walks. If he can't even walk upright, if he's slouchy, how can he take care of me? So don't shame yourself for wanting these things in a man. You are supposed to like those things in a man. Now, a man will mate with anything that walks, pretty much. And the hornier they get, so don't think just because a guy who's a 10 fucked you, you can get a 10 to date you. Because they'll fuck a 3 and a 4 if they're horny enough. They don't care. They're not that choosy. A man becomes choosy when his resources are at stake. So we're choosy when our resources are at stake, like for sex. We're very choosy on sex. That's why escorts make so much money, But Men get choosy when it comes to being in a relationship because now their resources are at stake. They become choosy about who's their girlfriend. So if you want to know if a man is really into you and not just using you for sex, see if he brings you around to his friends, his work, his family, because he'll only do that if he sees you as girlfriend or wife material. Whereas you'll probably have sex with him because you already see him as boyfriend material. So that's the big distinction between men and women. What I really hope that young women will get out of this is really honoring that, just consider that men and women are different, and that's a good thing. Relationships can be a lot juicier with that difference between us. We both have masculine and feminine energy, and that it's important to nurture it. The feminine energy being more like being in flow and singing and dancing and having our feelings. That doesn't mean we can dump our feelings on people. It just means that we're more aware of them, more in tune with them. We're the nurturers of the children, and the men are the providers. And I will say this, from the Marines I've talked to, and they will tell you that when the women go out in go out on the overnight training and stuff, the women, they're not competing like men. Women are like, we can do what men can do, but we can't, because the women have easier loads, lighter loads to carry, because women have a smaller lung capacity and they don't have as many muscles and they don't have as strong of upper body. So they carry lighter weights and the men help them out more. If I had to be carried out of a war zone, I would rather have a man do it. Men are just stronger. That's why women and men compete in different races. So I don't want to be like a man. I want to be a woman, but I'm a powerful woman. I mean, I'm a powerful woman, but I'm a woman. And I want to nurture my feminine qualities. Now, one more thing I'll say is that because women have become so powerful, men are a little bit lost. And they're afraid to even open the freaking door for us. I don't need a man to open the door for me because I'm helpless. He is stronger. I like a man to open the door for me because I like a man to lead. And I like to be a little bit submissive. And in bed especially, I like a man who takes charge and leads. I want to date a man who approaches me in public, not one that I have to approach because I'm the alpha bad bitch. If I want to be a man, I'll wear my strap on. But I would like being a girl. And I like being a woman. And so I think it's up to us to allow men. And allowing is just as powerful as leading. There's a lot of power in allowing. And I think what men really want is more women that are soft, that allow, and they kind of want to find their place. I think men have lost their place as we've become so empowered and tell them we don't need them. We're going to end up with a whole segment of society of men who feel like we don't need them. And that's going to cause a lot of social chaos and upheaval. And it results in women going, where are the men? Well, we push them all away. That's what happened to men. And guys, don't let women push you away. We need you. There are women who want men to lead and men who initiate. And the problem is that most of the men who come up to us in public they slide into DMs. They're the aggressive ones that we don't want. Just realize that we as women, we feel vulnerable and we don't want to just be approached for our bodies. I know that I go through life a lot of times like kind of guarded because I always feel like guys are just going to want my body. Like I'm energetically always guarded. I go on my LinkedIn and I'm guarded. Like who's going to try to come at me and get my body? Like it's just off-putting, guys, when you just want us for our bodies. We want to be, most women we don't want attention from all these guys. We want attention from the one guy that we care about. That's what we really want. The one guy that we really care about to give us some really good attention, including sexual attention. I don't want sexual attention from all these guys. I want it from my one guy. And so that's why it's important for men to keep initiating and leading. And I think it's good for women to be inviting to men. If you see a guy in the store, just smile at him. And one more thing, when I'm on my trail run, men who are running alone or walking alone totally ignore me. Totally ignore me. But when there's a man walking with a woman, which is about half the groups I come across, the man always says hi to me. And I thought about that today. And I think that the single men walking alone, they automatically already feel like I can't talk to her. It's going to be offensive, you know, she's not going to like that. And when they're with a woman, they feel like they can say hi to me because the woman is there. And it's never the woman who says hi to me, it's always the man. And I'm like, why are these men saying hi to me? But I realized today that the guys walking alone completely ignore me. And that's what happens when I go out. They completely ignore me. And I think that's a shame. That men think that we perceive them as predators. You know? Anyway, I hope you liked this video. This was a bit of a longer one. There are a lot of books written about the changing in society. The manosphere is full of men who are now incels. They've given up on women. And I think that we need to have these discussions so that we can kind of go forward in our happy relationships. And thank you so much for watching my video.